Welcome, everyone, to the Betty Eats podcast. I am Betty, and today on the program we have a special guest. We have Peter Barrett. I think many of you know who Peter Barrett is. He is a recipe developer and also writes a newsletter called Things on Bread. So welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for joining this morning. And I'd love for you, I know a lot of people know who you are, but I would love for you to tell.
Sure. So I started writing about food about 20 years ago. Just a blog for myself. I was in the art world and making paintings, and I just started a blog it's sort of a journal to keep track of what I was cooking because I like to improvise a lot, and I was trying to sort of push myself and learn more things. And over the course of the next few years, I was in Brooklyn. I moved up into the Hudson Valley where I am now, put in a big garden. So the blog sort of expanded. The nature of gardens is that they produce a lot of food. And so I started fermenting because I wanted to not throw that food away. I wanted to preserve it. My grandfather had taught me how to make pickles when I was a kid because he was from Poland. And so I already had the basic knowledge for making lacto-fermented pickles. And so I just started with his pickles and then went down every rabbit hole from there. In lacto fermentation, but then also, making vinegar, making cheese and all sorts of other dairy ferments, yogurt, charcuterie, and then all sorts of different koji, miso and similar type ferments. And then the art slowly kind of gave way to writing about food. I was teaching a lot of cooking classes. The economy kind of collapsed in 08, 09, and so I stopped selling paintings the way I had been. Just started writing, and the writing just kept growing and eventually just sort of supplanted the art entirely. I still take photographs and make ceramics and do things like that, but I don't paint, for a living anymore. So now I write about food and I teach and I consult and I do recipe development. I developed all the recipes, as you know, for the Blue Zones cookbook that came out a couple months ago for Dan Buettner. And right now I'm working on a book with a 3 Michelin star chef named Dominique Crenn, who's based in San Francisco, but she's originally from France. And we're writing a cookbook about her home region in France. And I have the couple of newsletters here and some magazine gigs and still doing some teaching and consulting and, ceramics and photography, and then lots and lots and lots of fermentation. And so sort of altogether, it kind of adds up to a career now, which is kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it is remarkable. That's it. So interesting. You are actually the second person that I've had on just in the past, I would say, month, who started their career in the arts. Jessie Sierra Ross, I don't know if you know her. She started off in the dance world. She was a professional ballerina for many years and transitioned into the food world. And so it's so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think that creative mind like you have is, a plus when it comes to putting food together.
Yeah, it's a plus if you're improvisationally inclined. It's a plus for the way that I cook. It's not necessarily a plus if you're a line cook and you need to be able to bang out exactly the same dish 60 times a night, every night.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, creativity for me, the kitchen now feels the way my studio used to when I was painting. And that's really exciting. It's the room in the house that I just want to be in. As much as I can.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. That's really neat. And that's a really good point. I know that I read one of your newsletter posts recently, and it was, I want to say it was the pizza post, and it was kind of a happy accident where you were just making things and it came together. And I think a lot of people can relate to that because, not everybody is going to make a recipe exactly the same like you have to at a restaurant. I mean, that's, when you're at home, you're just kind of like, okay, what's going to come together here for dinner tonight? So yeah. Going back to you were talking about your grandfather and how you learned how to make pickles. So did you grow up, obviously you learned from him, but did you grow up cooking regularly in the kitchen? Just growing up as a teen and maybe in your early 20s?
I didn't do a ton of cooking as a kid. I would make like in junior high, I'd sort of make myself like English muffin pizzas when I got home from school, and um, or I'd open a can of soup and just add a bunch of like herbs and garlic powder and things to it, you know. So I didn't really cook
Yeah.
in any meaningful way until I was a little older. But my
Mhm.
mom actually cooked, and she had a garden, and her parents also had a garden, and so I grew up surrounded by people who really did cook with real ingredients that they grew themselves, or um, so there was a real
Yeah.
commitment to that kind of approach to food, a very simple one, but also as much as possible like a handmade one, which is really that rubbed off on me for sure. And then
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to do my senior year of college in Rome, and that really kind of solidified in me a curiosity about food. Obviously, that's a pretty incredible city to be in from a culinary point of view. Um, but that's when I kind of had this light bulb moment where I went to a restaurant in my neighborhood, and I had a very simple dish called penne all'arrabbiata, which is just a simple spicy tomato sauce pasta. It has about five ingredients. Um, but I remember when I was eating it, I could taste how the dish was made because it has so few ingredients and it's such a simple,
Oh,
honest plate of food. So I understood how that dish was made, and I went and bought the things I needed and brought them back to our crappy little kitchen at the school, and made myself a version of penne all'arrabbiata that actually did the thing that the dish is supposed to do. And that to me has sort of been that was kind of the beginning, even though I then went and spent 20 years in the art world, and I got very into cooking, but I never thought of myself as anything like a culinary professional of any stripe. That was the beginning. That was the moment. That sort of epiphany in Rome was the beginning of me um, following my curiosity when it comes to food and understanding how it works and how to make things taste as good as they can. Um, and that's what brought me to to where I am now.
yeah, and that's incredible too. I mean, that kind of says something in terms of that you were able to pick out those flavors and then recreate them. That's not everybody can do that. So that's pretty amazing
Well,
that you
I
have
liken
that.
it. I liken it to having it. I liken it to having a musical ear. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some people, some people can hear a piano chord and tell you what it is. And look, that
Yeah.
pasta dish. I mean, honestly, it's pasta. It's tomatoes, garlic, hot pepper, oil, and salt. And I use parsley because I think it's important. But
Mm. Wow.
it's not a difficult dish to comprehend. It's that there's really nothing hiding behind
Mm-hmm.
anything else in that dish.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that was kind of like an awakening in a way, or a realization in a way. So that's neat.
Yeah.
Wow. And so as far as your transition then of just like you were talking about going from the art world to the food world, and realizing, oh gosh, I can make a career out of this. What led you towards recipe development? Because you talked about the recipes that you developed for the Blue Zone cookbooks. What piqued your interest with that?
I was in that case, honestly, it was really just it was a job. I had a job before that, a sort of corporate online job as a content editor that involved creating a lot of recipes. and editing other people's recipes and
Mm.
editing a lot and writing and editing a lot of other things too. But developing recipes was a big part of that gig, and so I did it because it was a really good job. Um, and it's not how I actually cook. Like I'm not,
Oh,
you
right.
know, a big part of what I try to do with my newsletter is teach people to cook without recipes,
Hmm.
to rely on instinct and experience and their existing understanding of cooking, to trust their
Hmm.
senses. Um,
Hmm.
but I understand that recipes obviously are a big part of how most people do cook, and so it's a good skill to have. It's
Right.
something that I'm good at. The people at National Geographic, who are Dan's publishers, you know, they sort of sent me basically a table of contents. Like we sort of want these are the ideas we want. These are the ingredients we want to feature. You know, we need like a chili, for example. We need you know, something like this, something like this. Here's some
Okay.
kind of breakfast, you know, bar type things. It's certain things that they knew people like.
Hmm.
There's a lot of demand for, and so they just sent me like a list,
Right.
and then it was my job to create recipes based on that list. And so I spent, you know, 4 months here in my
Mm.
kitchen, playing around with the possibilities, and I like challenges and I like limitations, and there are a lot of limitations because the Blue Zone diet leaves out a lot of things that people take for granted as being flavor boosters. You know, things like dairy,
Yeah.
things like animal protein.
Hmm.
Um, so you know, learning how
Hmm.
to the knowledge that I had acquired in terms of using things, you know, like miso and certain techniques for cooking. Um, Ways to coax a lot of flavor out of vegetables. I had been a vegetarian for years when I was younger, and learned a lot about cooking vegetables during
Oh,
that
okay.
period. And so, you know, and I am a home cook, right? I'm not a professional. I've not gone to culinary school, and apart from some pop-ups, I've never cooked in a restaurant. So I know how a home cook comes at things like this. And it's
Hmm.
the challenge was just to make incredibly delicious, incredibly healthy things that aren't going to trash your kitchen, and you know they're going to make you feel good. And so yeah, so
Yeah.
I brought the sort of skills that I had to bear on that project, and I'm really proud of them. I think those recipes are really good, and they're not complicated. A couple of them are a little more ambitious, but most of them are very simple,
Hmm.
and they taste really good. I mean,
Hmm.
ultimately it's all about pleasure and flavor. And if you
Yeah.
want people to change
Yeah.
their habits, if you want people to live healthier lives, you do that through
Hmm.
pleasure, right? Because guilt doesn't work and yelling doesn't work,
Mm.
and tables of
Yeah.
statistics and like actuarial tables showing lifespans, you know, that nobody, like, that doesn't work. What works is making people say, "Oh my God, this is so good. I want to make this again."
Hmm.
And then it becomes part of their weekly rotation.
Hmm.
And then instead of having burgers, you know, they're now making the one of the things that I came up with that, you know, that is functionally vegan. That book has a few little exceptions, but it's largely a vegan book. But most of the dishes in there don't really read like vegan dishes
Hmm.
um, because they taste really good. And so you're not trying to
Hmm.
duplicate something like melted cheese because you can't duplicate that using
Yeah.
vegetables
Yeah.
and nuts and seeds. You can get incredible flavors, but there are certain textures and certain things that, you know, a veggie burger can be a really fun thing to eat, but it's nobody's
Hmm.
ever going to confuse it for a burger. And, you know, sure, you've got Beyond Meat now, but honestly, I don't know. The carbon footprint of Beyond Meat is not better than beef, so I'm not sure I see what the point is in something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun. I like a challenge,
Yeah.
and I like teaching people how to maximize flavor using very simple ingredients and simple
Hmm.
techniques.
And I think that is such a good point, Peter, when you were talking about how, so many of those recipes in that series of books is vegan or practically vegan, but it's not like that's what you're leading with. What you're leading with seems to be flavor. This tastes good and it's good for you. Oh, and it's accidentally vegan, you know? So so that just seems like a fun way to approach it too, because it's not like, let me hammer this home that this is good for you, but it's like, no, this tastes delicious and don't you love it? So I do like to ask guests about AI. And there's all sorts of things that we can talk about there, but because you have worked on books and you are a food writer, and I'm sure you have seen just the rise of AI recipes. Um, do you have opinions, your take on that? The good, the bad, the ugly?
Yeah. Do I have opinions? Huh. Yes. If you knew me, that you would not need to ask that question. Yes. I think that if you want to use ChatGPT to help you put together an outline um,
Hmm.
prior to diving into a big project, or if you want to use it to
Hmm.
do some kind of 30,000 feet overview on a topic so you can orient yourself ahead of doing a bunch of research, that's fine.
Hmm.
Certainly, if you want to help it
Hmm.
deal with, QuickBooks ahead of tax season, great. That's what it should be used for. Um, but I feel, and I am as guilty of this as everyone else, right? Like, I mean, my phone's right here. I'm not a saint, and I am not a Luddite, and I'm not coming saying any of this from like a condescending point of view, but I really feel that our phones are destroying our attention spans. Um, and I feel that
Yeah.
as more and more people just basically turn to ChatGPT the way they used to turn to Google,
Oh,
it,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really bad. It's a really bad phenomenon because it is
Mm.
not Google. Google would access all the existing data on a subject, which came from books and magazine articles and blog posts and things that human beings had written, may or may not have been correct, but at least it was actually made by human beings. And in the case of magazines and books,
Mm.
um, and certainly scholarly publications, all of those things have been vetted and edited and fact checked, at least up to a point. ChatGPT just
Mm.
scrapes everything, including other AI written garbage. And so with each passing day, the
Yeah.
percentage of
Yeah.
information that AI is scraping from is also is AI generated. And so you get into this recursive garbage spiral where information becomes less reliable by the day.
Mm.
Um, when you add to that the fact that the images look absolutely horrific, and obviously I know they're getting better and all that, but the AI food photography is just horrible. It's all, the light's all
Yeah.
curdled, and it looks like airbrushed art that you'd see on the side of a van. It doesn't look at even a little bit appetizing. And I think that um, I'm not particularly alarmist by nature, but I think that
Mm.
absent any kind of meaningful oversight on these industries, and of course we're living in an age of the complete absence of oversight over these industries.
Mm.
Um, we're living
Yeah.
in an age where the most harmful industries are being promoted and given access to our most personal information.
Mm.
Um, I
Hmm.
think that we owe it to ourselves to honestly to boycott it as much as we possibly can. It is not doing
Mm.
anybody any favors. It's filling the world up with garbage. And then future
Hmm.
generations of these bots are going to be scraping that garbage and feeding us garbage that's built from other garbage. So reality is just going to get more and more removed. I mean,
Hmm.
it's for me, food is
Mm.
about it's
Right.
about pleasure, it's about nutrition, it's about showing love, it's about the very essence of being human and being alive, being an organism on this planet. And that is something that the robots can, by definition, never understand. And everything that they've done so far that I guess you could sort of label as food content is absolutely horrific and should be avoided at all costs.
It's interesting what you were saying about it kind of scraping other AI generated things. It kind of reminds me of that echo chamber effect, of just kind of the same misinformation, just reiterated and slightly different in another way. But it's like, oh, haven't I heard this before, and it's still wrong. So yeah. Yeah, that is something that I agree with you on the AI generated photos. They kind of make me laugh sometimes because you think, oh gosh, cranberries don't look like that. They're not that large, it's very humorous sometimes. But yeah. So, I think about it too, and I don't know how you feel about this. How there's always this pendulum swing of like, oh, this is the next greatest thing. But it seems like there also is sort of I don't want to say backlash, but there also seems to be a pendulum swing in the other direction too, where it seems like a lot of people now are more interested in things like fermentation or things that maybe their grandparents taught them or that their mom taught them. And so I wonder sometimes if that is going to somehow balance everything out. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there already is some kind of a backlash and a move away from this AI garbage, and the problem is
Hmm.
that if you go on any digital platform now, right? You pick up your phone, you go on. I mean, there are now entire books for sale on things like fermentation that weren't even written by a
Hmm.
human being. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
agree that there's a backlash. I agree that are really craving. People are craving analog experiences. People are craving humanity. People are craving actual
Hmm.
knowledge that, let's talk about going out and foraging mushrooms in the woods. People are craving knowledge that isn't going to get them killed. Um, so but we now are going to have to learn which sources to trust. We're going to learn how to vet
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
whatever search engine we use. We're going to have to learn how to vet those results and get second opinions and go get under the hood and
Hmm.
see where they're coming from. And it's going to be more work because the amount of money that's being spent on data centers right now and force feeding us AI in every app we use, whether it's Photoshop or a search engine
Hmm.
or our phone, where you cannot turn these things off. They're just baked in now. And
Yeah.
so it's just going to take more work. And ironically, because it's supposed to save us all a huge amount of work, but
Mhm.
that's the people behind it don't have that as their priority. That's how they're selling it, but that's not what they want from it. And so
Mm.
it's as much as possible, I would say, like, try to cook with and for other human beings. Try to go to your local library for cookbooks rather than the internet. Try to get outside. If you have any
Yeah.
space to do so, try to grow some food for yourself and your neighbors. And try to become part of, like,
Mm.
more part of your community in ways that don't involve the internet. Because
Hmm.
we can't trust it, and I'm not sure that's getting better anytime soon.
Yeah. I love that you said libraries because that is something I saw recently. Somebody had talked about how they have a hard time. So many cookbooks come out and so many of them are so good. It's kind of like, how do I test drive them? And somebody goes, libraries, duh. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've done that for years just because limited resources, limited time. And I used to take my kids to the library all the time. And so I'd come home with this stack of,
Yeah.
magazines or cookbooks. And I still do that. Old habits die hard. And I love my local library. And so, and it's really fun too to find the gems, just like old, oh gosh, what did I see the other day? It was an old, like California blue ribbon recipe. state fair winners from, I don't know, 1965. And it was just so fun and interesting, and real. It's like these are real recipes from ladies and their grandmas. And so, yeah, I love that idea of checking out books from the local library and um, finding things there. So, yeah, it's a great idea. Hopefully, more people will do that.
Yeah, I hope
But
so because the solution is it's gonna take more work for us to retain our humanity. That's true in politics. It's true for food. It's
mm,
true for everything that we hold dear.
mhm,
It is up to us to do
mm,
the extra work in order to preserve the things about our society that we cherish. But it is going to be more work.
right. Well, you talked a little bit about getting outside and planting a garden and things like that. And before we started recording, you mentioned a little bit about what you're growing. Do you mind sharing that with what you have in your garden right now?
Yeah, so I live, north of New York City, and we've had some frosts, so the tender crops are done. Um,
Mm.
I have tons of sheet trays of hot peppers drying on my dining room table right now. Um, so what's going on now is I've got those white Japanese turnips right now, which are about this big. They're just
Oh,
gorgeous. Um, Tons of carrots, tons of beets, lots and lots of different kinds of chicory, escarole and
oh my
pan de
goodness.
zucchero and
Wow.
um, bok choy, gailan, tatsoi, mash, lettuce, lots of lettuces. The hardier herbs are all still fine. The parsley's happy as can be. The fennel, even my tarragon is still hanging on. It's not looking great, but it's alive.
Oh,
But so yeah, and my potatoes, I've only just begun to dig up my potatoes. So it's, greens and roots is the bulk of
wow.
it these days, but oregano and thyme are still
Mhm.
kicking. Sage is still going. Um, the dandelions in my yard, and the field garlic also in my yard. Those are both happy as can be right now. This is the spring and fall are their two seasons. So, and then we've had some rain finally. So I got to get in the woods because it's maitake season. My last walk, I found a bunch of oysters. And so oysters,
Oh,
maitake, and there's still some boletes coming up too. So mushroom season's still happening. So there's a lot. There's lots of food to be found outside.
well, with the volume that you're talking about, I can see why you want to preserve that through fermentation projects and things like that. Um, I really enjoyed, it was I want to say a couple months ago where you were talking about, it was it 30 different plants? I don't know. It was a lot of different plants. It was all in one fermentation and it looked really gorgeous and just so interesting. Do you have plans for
That
something like
was
that with all the produce?
Yeah, that was a guest post on Flavor Freaks by a really accomplished fermenter um, named Johnny
Okay.
Drain. That was a terrific
Mm,
post. Yeah, I like to mix things up.
mm,
I like to. I'm going to make a sort of straight down the middle kind of fastball kimchi because I like just a classic like that. But then I'm going to make all kinds of
mhm.
hybrids because for example, I have so many scallions this year. I had an incredible year for whatever reason. The scallions are just
Wow.
crazy. So when I go out, I have to plant garlic. So I'm going to rip up the scallions while I'm out there. And I'm going to do like a scallion kimchi. I'm going to make a scallion oil. But then I'm going to make some kind of a turnip green, daikon, carrot, some kind of
Mm,
I like to just take what's in front of the
mm,
leeks. I got to get rid of the leeks because it's they're ready. Um, so yeah, I like to just sort of look around the garden and kind of take stock of what I've got and how I might combine them, and then I make a whole bunch of different
mhm,
varied pickles based on what the garden gives me in the proportions that seem right, or just the proportions that come out of the beds. I like to leave
mm,
myself open to suggestion from the garden and let it sort of tell me Like you have this many leeks and this many carrots, so that's the proportion that's going in the jar. I really enjoy that
Hmm.
because it's a way that the garden can kind of express itself. And it also
Yeah.
is a way of learning what happens if I use a ratio
Mhm.
that would not necessarily be the one that I would think of if I was going to the store to shop for carrots and leeks or whatever. What happens if I just
Yeah.
take what I'm given and use it in those ratios? And sometimes you can get some really wonderful surprises, or you just interesting harmonies that you weren't previously aware of in terms of the way certain ingredients have a relationship with each other, especially after they've fermented together for a while. There's a huge amount of nuance and beauty, and
Yeah.
because I don't have to repeat myself, because I am a home cook
Uh-huh.
and I can do it however I want, that openness to change and improvisation to me is it's a huge source of pleasure and just excitement and interest. It keeps it fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. And I love that idea. I know there's a couple of food writers that also kind of talk about a no recipe, basically, and to where you're not, I don't know, you're just not bound to things as much as people think you are when it comes to recipes. That a lot of times, other than baking, that's a little different thing. But a lot of times with recipes, it is a matter of adapting, like, okay, I don't have that many carrots, so I'll use something else instead. And so I really love that because I think that's how my mom cooked. Like she did not follow a recipe book. So, um, I think that that's how a lot of through millennia, that's how people cooked. And so we've somehow kind of gotten away from that, but now we're kind of back to that. So I really, I really like that. And I liked the idea too of letting your garden tell you what to make, instead of I'm making this and it's no, I'm going to go with the flow and make, what's available. So, yeah, very smart too, because that way there's no waste. Well, I know that you were out here in California for a little bit.
Yeah, so I have some friends who have a series of a rotating kind of dinner party supper club situation out in LA where they go through different people's homes once or twice a month.
Mhm.
Really just interesting, creative, cool people. I got to cook dinner for a group of 35 people at this beautiful house in Beverly Hills, and I had about a day to prep ahead of time, which I did in my brother's condo in Venice, and then brought everything over in containers and finished it there, heated it up, cooked in the oven, used the grill,
Mhm.
used all their pots and pans, and brought together a pretty successful dinner party. People seemed really happy with the food. I didn't try anything particularly fancy or ambitious, um, but it all came together. I've done
Mhm.
it enough now that I kind of understand how the timing works, and I got everything ready and out on the table right at 7:30, which was when it was supposed to be there, and it's fun. I mean, I like it, and it's challenging. I like challenges and I like limitations. So learning how to
Mhm.
make things come together at the right time and make food that's really, really fun to eat and makes people happy, and where you don't have to explain it to
Yeah.
them. And that's really important for me. And I feel like the food was good to eat, and it was soulful and pleasurable, and uh, even dessert, which for LA was remarkable. But everyone ate dessert too, and they liked it. It was a variation on my grandmother's apple tart
Yeah.
that was really fun. And I
Um,
mean, I just go crazy when I'm out there because the ingredients are so phenomenal, right? So I made this. I was at this farm
um,
the week before the
mhm.
dinner, and I loaded up on fig leaves and some yuzu, fresh yuzu, and I just made a fig leaf and yuzu kind of
Wow.
vinaigrette thing for some broccolini, and it was fabulous. It was
Mm.
just a great flavor. So for
Wow.
me, I love taking again, like letting the garden tell me what I'm making, right? So the fig leaves and the yuzu told me what that was going
Mhm.
to be. And that's my favorite way to cook is
Yeah.
because again, it's very in the moment. It's very about that time and that place and those people that you're cooking
Mhm.
for, and then it's sort of gone, and we move on and try to
Mm.
replicate some form of that magic, but never the exact thing. That to me is what it's all about.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because that kind of almost reflects back to painting in a way, because like what you're painting is in that moment and then it's gone, because the next thing is going to be different. So, yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Well, thank you for sharing about that. And I know that usually, as we wind down, guests like to share a tried and true recipe with listeners. And we talked a little bit about that, but can you talk about the recipe that you're wanting to share with listeners?
Yeah, there's a Roman dish called chicoria ripassata that's made from wild chicory that grows all in the hills and around there. Uh, it
Mm,
grows over big chunks of Italy, but I learned this in Rome, and it's similar to dandelions. It's in the same family. It's not exactly a dandelion, but it's similar. And ripassata means functionally it means cooked again, right? So it's a two-stage
mm,
process. It's very simple. It's the ultimate peasant food, right? Because it's wild greens that you're going out and picking. Um, but because it's chicory, it has this wonderful bitterness. And when you do this two-stage cooking, that bitterness kind of transforms into this incredible addictive umami. And so I have a version of
mm,
that uses dandelion greens, which most of us have access to either in our yards or at the market now. They're pretty popular and um,
mhm,
easy to find at a supermarket. So you can use dandelion greens. It's maybe 15 or 20 minutes to pull this off. There's really
mm.
nothing else going on besides olive oil and salt. And I like a smashed clove of garlic, but that's really
Wow.
it. There are no other ingredients besides the greens. And
Wow.
once you get a sense for how this works, it's very simple. But once you get a sense for how this two-stage cook works, it's a
Mhm,
side dish it goes with everything. You can make it year round because dandelions are
mm,
almost seasonless. And
mm.
this is a dish where I've had people who like hate vegetables, like young people, like some of my son's friends who like honestly won't eat anything that's green. I've watched one of them just inhale an entire bowl of this stuff. She just couldn't believe how good it
Wow.
was, and she just kept asking for more every time she'd come over. So
Wow.
it's an incredibly powerful dish for something so simple. I love it.
That sounds wonderful. Well, I'll put links to that in the show notes. Um, so, Peter, where is the best place for people to get in touch with you, to read your work, or to contact you if they have questions?
Well, I mean, this on this platform, Things on Bread is definitely where I do the most of my own writing. Um, and then I have a site
Okay.
that's just peterbarrett.net if you want to, look at my CV or find links to some other stuff. And Instagram is
Okay.
cookblog, COOKBLOG.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, I will be sure to put links to that also, so that way people can find you and subscribe and read more about you. Well, thank you again, Peter, for being here
Great.
today. I sure appreciate your time and just thank you for also all of what you have shared about just your thoughts on cooking and AI and really just letting the garden kind of dictate. I love that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Really, I enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading your posts and meeting more people through the group that introduced us to each other.
Yeah, yes, it's very fun. It's a wonderful, wonderful mastermind group. Well, thank you.